Hey, welcome to Fan Theory Queries, where we analyze fan theories from all over the internet, but mostly Reddit. I'm Laura.
I'm Michael.
And I'm Spencer. And because this episode releases on May the 4th, which is internationally known as Star Wars Day, we've chosen some intriguing Star Wars fan theories to discuss and analyze their plausibility. Let's begin with you, Laura.
Great. Okay. So the theory that I chose is, why did Leia not hug Chewbacca in The Force Awakens? And this comes from user Cyborg Commando 0. I was encouraged to post this here, but full disclosure, this is not originally my idea. Someone else came up with it. Thank you for your candor, Cyborg Commando. So, in The Force Awakens, after Han Solo's death, they return to the Resistance base, and Chewbacca walks right past Leia, and she ignores him and goes right up to the new girl, Rey. And later, we see Chewbacca all alone and grieving. Understandably, this upset many fans. It made me at least a little curious personally. And here's what happened. Chewbacca lost his best friend, and after leaving the Starkiller base, started observing a Wookiee mourning ritual. This mourning ritual basically says that a Wookiee shouldn't touch another being until they have been able to grieve properly and privately. So that's why Leia didn't attempt to touch Chewbacca. She knew Han was dead, and she also is familiar enough with Chewbacca and some of his customs and rituals to allow Chewbacca his space to grieve in his own way, the Wookiee way. So there is an objection that Chewbacca carried Finn into the Millennium Falcon and touched her, showing he was not observing the mourning ritual. Touched her, I think, meaning touched him is what the user probably meant. But the rebuttal is that I'm sure saving Finn's life was well within tolerance. No point turning mourning into 3 or 4 people if your actions can prevent it. So yeah, that's what Cyborg Commando wrote about this. It's a little short one, but it is something that was quite noticeable in Force Awakens. Did you guys pay attention to that at all when we watched that movie?
Oh yeah, I noticed it right off the bat. For those that do know me, everybody knows that I'm a huge Star Wars nerd, first and foremost. So I know a little bit of the lore behind a lot of this stuff, but I wouldn't say I'm an expert per se. But I do think that I would have to go along with the whole Wookiee ritual thing. And I think that the explanation for him saving Finn is that in their ritual, the only exception that they can have to touching someone is if it's a life or death situation and they are saving somebody. So, yeah, I think that's probably what it was, in my opinion.
I didn't notice it. I don't pick up on those kinds of things. And it's been a while since I've seen the movie. It makes sense. I don't know anything about Wookiee rituals, but I feel like that's kind of based in reality. Like, are there other religions or worldviews that might be based in? Am I making that up?
No, I think you're right. And I think that's something that I remember reading about that somebody else wrote, but I totally ascribe to this idea. I believe it's a particular part of Judaism, possibly Hasidic Judaism. I'm not quite sure, so don't quote me on this, but it's the same kind of principle of their mourning as a very private process and very singular. But if there's a moment of, like, if somebody is like Finn was close to dying, that's the exception, that you can break through that to go, and you need to show concern for this other life at the moment.
Yeah.
I could see there being other reasons, though. Like, maybe it was just not scripted for him to do that.
Okay, you mean other reasons why Leia might have shunned him. Okay, so it's funny you say that. So there are a couple of extra commenters on this post from Reddit. One of them is, oh no, I don't know if I can say this. On nom nom nom. Om nom nom nom. Okay, maybe I should stop. Oh, nom nom nom. Okay. Yep. It could just be.
That's it.
Okay, that's it. It could just be that Leia hates Chewbacca and his family for having to participate in their stupid holiday.
I mean, when you go through something like that, you're gonna harbor some hate.
For any of the uninitiated, this is referring to the Star Wars holiday special from, when was that, 76? Maybe?
No.
No, because A
It
New
was
Hope
before
came out in 77.
Oh, okay. Well, it was just,
Trying to remember.
it was a straight-to-TV thing. It focused on,
I think it was 79, maybe.
okay, it focused on the Wookiees and their holiday, and it wasn't very well received. It was rather bizarre. So that's nom nom noms theory. Good Boy Alex wrote that J.J. Abrams admitted that it was just a mistake and an oversight, like you said, Spencer, in the script, that they just totally forgot about it, which is something I kind of think is really nice and beautiful and a good thing about the Star Wars fandom. We've heard of so many ugly things coming out of the Star Wars fandom. This is something nice that they're able to go and fill in that hole that was unintentionally left when the script was written.
So I looked it up, and the Star Wars Holiday Special was released on November 17th of 1978.
We were dancing
Close.
around it.
Yes, we were so close.
Yes.
Yes, so far.
But if that's true from what J.J. Abrams says, it's kind of disappointing considering J.J. Abrams is supposed to be good.
Especially
He made Lost after all.
As thoughtful, exactly. Coming off of something like Lost and how thoughtful he had to be.
I have my own theories about Lost.
Hey, we've got some Lost theories to talk about eventually. We'll get there. Mm-hmm. Anyway, moving on. So then user Kinnison said, I believe there's a simpler explanation. Chewie couldn't bring himself to look Leia in the eyes because he blamed himself for not protecting Han. And, shooting her son in the stomach and leaving him to die on a planet that was about to explode.
Yeah. I like that one.
That's a pretty good one.
Yeah.
This is the one that I really like. This is from C3PP. I agree with the posters in that it's that Leia hates Chewbacca. So that's why she wouldn't even...
Simple enough.
Yeah, and here's the direct evidence. Lack of medal. She did not present Chewbacca with a medal like she did the other. Like this theory says, no hug in The Force Awakens. Someone get this walking carpet out of my way. So
that's a direct quote.
Also, I just as soon kiss a Wookiee. So those kinds of things. Literally says only 2 words to Chewbacca through 4 movies, both while Chewie is choking Lando. That's the only time apparently that at least this user sees that Leia actually speaks to Chewbacca. So
yeah.
Also, let's see, circumstantial evidence. General Tarkin, I recognized your foul stench, so she equally hates smelly things. Okay. And says, I happen to like nice men, which is fine. Not everyone has to like Wookiees. So, that's very circumstantial. So then my Buster Sword says, second theory, he smells.
Oh man.
I mean, yeah, if you're upset, who wants to stick their face in a big old stanky something? So
yeah. I like to think that Wookiees just smell like wet dogs all the time.
I mean, yeah, I would imagine so. That sounds accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would stay away from that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not something that I want to embrace.
Is there anything else you guys want to discuss about this theory of why Leia didn't hug Chewbacca in The Force Awakens?
I think we've got some good ideas. I don't have anything to add. It seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I will add just a little bit to that one comment that I don't remember who it was that had it, but basically that she just hates Wookiees because of like no metal, all that stuff. I think it's plausible that she, just because of the way she was raised as royalty, that she kind of automatically looked down on those that are certain species, like alien species, that they thought was less than.
Maybe, because I feel I don't know that.
But she liked the little forest people.
Ewoks?
Yeah. She partied with them.
Oh, Ewoks are something different. That was another fan theory I kind of wanted to go for, but I didn't.
Yeah.
But
we'll save that for another time.
Yes. The next May the 4th. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So
yeah, that's it.
Okay. Well, then how about we rate it? Michael, could you explain the rating scale for us, please?
Yeah. So this is how our rating scale goes. the highest thing that we have is genius. And this is reserved only for the best theories, which we believe are better than like the actual canon. The next step down is plausible. It's a good theory that's believable. It's pretty simple. Unlikely, and not a terrible theory, but it's still pretty unlikely. And then the last thing is preposterous. These are theories that are just stupid. Basically, we're all dumber for having listened to them. Simple as that.
Very
All right.
Okay, well, then I guess I'll start it off here. And I'm going to say this is plausible. There are just so many different ways to view this, of it either being that she doesn't like him or she's trying to honor his Wookiee tradition. So it's definitely plausible. I think it could fit, especially knowing that it was actually just an oversight by the screenwriters. So being able to fill in that gap is nice. And with a nice little story. With a nice little story like that, it's kind of nice. So I'll go with plausible.
Spencer?
Yeah, I wouldn't. I guess I would say plausible. I mean, I wouldn't say it's unlikely, but I wouldn't say it's genius. So I guess that leaves me with plausible.
Yeah, I'll agree with you guys. It's like you said, it's a good theory. When it comes down to it, it literally was just a mistake by JJ. I mean, he's admitted that in multiple interviews. But I like to think that the fandom is so creative that we've kind of created this scenario to fill in the gap that was left by reality. So, plausible.
Cool.
All right, now that we've got those rankings down pat, let's hear what you have to say, Michael. What's your theory to share?
Mine comes from a website, actually, ranker.com. Not Rancor for the Star Wars fans out there. It's Ranker. R-A-N-K-E-R.
Thanks for clarifying.
Yes.
So the theory is that Chewbacca and R2-D2 are spies. So they say Han Solo was a loner who had to be cajoled into joining the rebel cause, but his furry co-pilot Chewbacca may be a different story. After all, it is Chewbacca who Obi-Wan first approaches in the cantina when seeking a ride to Alderaan. Chewbacca is also seen fighting alongside Yoda in Revenge of the Sith, and there's a good chance that he was actually an agent of the rebellion all along, unbeknownst to Han. This theory has been kicking around the internet for years, and people just love that Wookiee. But it's easy.
Except for Leia.
Yeah, yeah, except for Leia. But it's even easier to believe, and perhaps maybe more plausible, that R2-D2 was a secret agent as well. The droid conveniently happens to be around for everything of importance, and Leia entrusts him with an incredibly precious mission. Also, R2 seems like aggressively upgraded for an astromech droid. You don't need that kind of hardware if you're basically a glorified GPS. So that's what the theory is.
Seriously.
Yeah.
I love that.
I'm going to start by saying, like, I also love this theory. I think it's brilliant, and it's very likely that it's true, because it makes some valid points. We see Chewbacca fighting with Yoda in one of the prequel movies, and he was fighting on the side of the rebellion with the clone troopers before they turned. And so he also helps Yoda escape in his little escape pod. So, I mean, it seems like Chewbacca already had a relationship with Yoda, so he probably did some missions with him on the side at some point. I don't know if that's ever been proven anywhere, but I would like to think he has. And then, yeah, just the way that Chewbacca handles everything throughout the entire saga, he just seems like he's a trained agent. And plus, it's just cool to think that he is. But then R2, yeah, like, I thought everybody thought that R2 was already a secret agent. Like, he's literally there for everything, and he's out of the two main droids, he's the one that doesn't have his memory wiped. So he has all this knowledge of everything that's happened throughout the entire saga as it's happening, and it just makes sense. Like, he's very easy to overlook, and in the Star Wars universe, droids tend to just be overlooked in general. But he's just an unsuspecting astromech droid. Like, no one would suspect that he, like they say, is packing all the hardware that he is. He's got the oil slick and the rocket boosters and all the other gadgets that he's got. He's basically the droid MacGyver,
Or James Bond.
Yes, yeah.
Well, he even has like a taser thing on him, too.
Yeah. So.
Oh yeah, I mean, I see him as a not so secret agent.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if we say they're spies, like, who are they spying for the rebellion?
Yes, that's what I assume. they're meaning there is they're spies for the rebellion.
Mm-hmm. That maybe in I think what you're thinking about, Spencer, is like, so how are they spies if they're always with the rebellion? And I think it's because people wouldn't suspect that they would be very knowledgeable about what's going on, so they would feel free to kind of let loose with information.
Let their guard down, maybe.
Yes.
Yeah. I see it more as like agents for the CIA, but not undercover agents. Like they people know, like there are some agents that go and do missions and people know they're CIA. Like they announce themselves as CIA, but they're still able to do all this secretive stuff while they're on these missions. However, there are agents that are specifically undercover agents that they go in and assume an alias and become somebody else and work on the side of the enemy. So I don't think that they're that kind. I think they're the former of those two.
Okay.
So
yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think, and I agree with the author of the post about I think it's even more plausible for R2 than Chewbacca. I mean, I suppose with Chewbacca, but I mean, are the Wookiees, I mean, I don't know. I think there's something I don't know enough about the Wookiee race, whereas with R2 being a programmable droid, most definitely, yes. 100% like, okay, sure. I trust this without even having to question anything.
Yeah. Do you have anything to add, Spencer?
I like the thought of him having all these little fun little gadgets like James Bond, and he is around more all kinds of crazy things, all the important things. He's involved. Like it says, he is entrusted with a very important mission. You compare him to essentially any other droid that should serve the same purpose as him. He clearly is much more involved. So, I mean, I think there's some weight to it.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a rating system in itself of R2 as far as like level of spy that he is. If you saw it as there's James Bond and there's Data from the Goonies. Was it Data? No, what was his name?
Oh, what was he?
It's Data, isn't it?
Is it?
I think it might have been Data.
Who's the fact checker?
I'll look it up right now.
In the middle is R2.
Yeah, it's Data.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Especially when you said oil slick,
Mhm.
my mind immediately went to Data. So I see it as James Bond, Data in the middle, maybe closer up, maybe above half between is R2, closer to James Bond.
He's not 100% like the cool spy, as we saw in like Revenge of the Sith. Whenever he's going after those super battle droids,
enough.
yeah,
he's not
doesn't
agile
get the
enough.
ladies.
Yeah.
Or does he? Look at
Oh.
Leia. They're best friends.
That's
true.
true.
And then Padme before that.
Hello.
Yeah. Okay. I guess
cool.
we're
I
ready
think
to rate. Yeah.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, I am going to say this is genius, just because I love the idea of maybe Chewy and R2 being spies together on the side, like a buddy cop type thing, like the adventures of Chewy and R2. I really want to see that series. So I'm going to say this is genius, and I'm going to replace this as the actual canon in my own head.
Yes. Okay. That was a whole new element of the discussion, Michael, that you brought in just on your rating of them working together and being partners. Holy moly. That would be incredible.
Yep.
So, I mean, I'm still going to have to go with a plausible just on Chewbacca more so than R2. R2, I would think, yes, genius level. This has to be canon. Chewbacca, I'm a little iffy on that one. So I'm going to say I'll just give it an overall plausible. But, oh man, you brought in a whole new element right then, Michael. What a great idea.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep, I'm with you. I'm going to say plausible as well. Everything lends to this being a possibility, but as far as it being genius and like blowing my mind, not quite there.
Cool.
All right, is it my turn?
Yes, it is, Spencer.
Okay, now everybody strap in for this one. All right, this is a little bit of a longer one, even though I did abbreviate it. And mind you, I'll be reading this word for word. This is called The Real Reason Luke Didn't Kill Ben Solo from user Supervinyl on Reddit. As anyone who has seen Revenge of the Sith knows, Skywalkers have a tendency to kill a bunch of younger Jedis in training. In fact, this is why the existence of Luke and Leia was hidden from Darth Vader, because he would have tried to kill them if they ever started training to be Jedis, as evidenced by Vader's multiple attempts to kill Luke in the original trilogy. This obviously didn't work, the reason being that Akinian had legally changed his last name to Vader. It stands to reason.
They mean Anakin.
It stands to reason that if he had kept the last name Skywalker, he would have succeeded. Now, I know what you're going to say. Hey, super. Didn't the Emperor change Anan's last name before he killed a bunch of Jedi kids? Aha. You really question whether I didn't think this all out, huh? Well, here's how we know that didn't happen. When I got married, the bureaucratic process to change my wife's last name took literal weeks. Yet only moments after Plaps claims that Anian's new last name is Vader, we see him kill all those kids off screen. There's no way the paperwork to change Akinen's name had been processed by that time. Still not persuasive enough for you? Then let me hammer the last nail in the coffin of your doubt and draw your attention to one little detail by way of a question. When Anakin arrives at a place to kill all those kids, what did that one fat kid call him? Did he call him Master Vader? No, he called him Master Skywalker. Clearly, the bureaucratic process had not finalized yet, and that's why all those little kids couldn't overpower a grown war veteran. In the sequel trilogy, we're told that Ben teamed up with a bunch of his Knights of Ren buddies and killed all the other trainer Jedis, but something just doesn't add up. For one thing, we never explicitly see these supposed Knights of Ren characters in the films, and if we do, they certainly don't look like Ben's buddies. So for the sake of argument, I'm going to argue that there never were any Knights of Ren. That was just Disney pretending. Now I know what you're going to say. Hey, super. But then who killed all those other training Jedis? I think you already know who. And I'll hammer the last nail in the coffin of your doubt and draw your attention to one little detail by way of a question. Who still went by the last name Skywalker at the time? Hint. It wasn't Ben. That's right. Ben's last name was Solo, and then he changed it to Ren for some reason. Leia's last name wasn't Skywalker. It was Orgasma, so it couldn't have been her. Ben her. No, I think we all know who it was. Luke. Luke killed all those Jedi kids in training. And I think the evidence I've laid out is pretty incontrovertible and refutable and undeniable and incontestable. But I know what you're going to say. Hey, super. But why didn't Luke kill his nephew Ben? Well, let me just hammer the last nail in the coffin of your doubt and draw your attention to one little detail by way of a question. Of all the thousands of Jedi kids in training that were killed by Skywalkers that I've listed so far, how many of them were somebody's nephew? Case closed. Too long didn't read. Luke didn't kill Ben Solo. And that's it. So basically, to summarize all of that nonsense, the basic point is that if your last name is Skywalker, you kill young Jedis.
Younglings.
Yes, younglings. I must point out the highlighted comment from Shiny Xazbzal. The amount of ways Anakin was spelled in this is too amusing, basically meaning it was hard to stop reading, and I'm 100% sold on this.
I didn't know you were doing a bit, / he was doing a bit with all the different Anakin, Ankin, Ankane.
Who knows? Maybe he wasn't.
Ankinian. I mean, and some of those names were, well, and then yet only moments after Plaps.
Yeah, Plaps.
Instead of...
So he definitely adds...
Dear listeners, what Plaps is referring to, if you didn't understand, was Emperor Palpatine, but Plaps.
Yes, Plaps. That's what I'm going to call him now.
Yes.
Okay. So, if you strip away all the flavor, the results of someone being high or something, bottom line is, and Luke, basically, he's saying that Luke killed all of the younglings that we were led to believe that the Knights of Ren killed, but he didn't kill Ben Solo because it was his nephew. And of course he lays the proof because Vader, or what's his name before Vader?
Anakin,
yeah.
Anakin,
Anakin.
and Kanan.
And Kenyan.
Killed a bunch of kids while his last name was still Skywalker. So
I didn't think that kid was that fat.
that's what I was about to say. I don't remember a fat kid, but
He was a kid.
Yeah, he just had like the kid fat.
One thing I want to ask y'all, that one thing I think is a really good point, is his talk about the Knights of Ren. It was never really explored much, right? We saw him like kind of like a little bit of a flashback, or like the Force vision in The Force Awakens, but it's never really like explored that much. Or did I just miss it?
No, it's really not. So basically what happened was Kathleen Kennedy, and all of her genius, she decided that at first she was going to hire J.J. Abrams to do a full sequel trilogy for them. And then she also decided she didn't want him to do any more after Force Awakens. He was just going to be a producer. And she brought in Rian Johnson, who had his own vision, which was terrible. And he changed all of the canon in his movie and made everything not make any more sense anymore. And then they realized, after all the fan backlash from that movie, that they made a bad choice. So they brought J.J. Abrams back, even though originally it was supposed to be Colin Trevorrow, who's the director of the Jurassic World movies. So when it all comes down to it, is Kathleen Kennedy made some horrible decisions, and the canon was just screwed up by like 5 different visions, because she also had her own visions in this trilogy. So nothing is going to make sense.
Is Miss Kennedy and all related to the lady in charge of Sony?
She's probably a cousin or something. It would make sense.
I mean, the way they've bungled the Spider-Man movies sounds on par.
Yeah.
Goodness, wow. Yeah, this took us in a whole different direction.
I think it was about time for that.
By the way, sorry, Michael, let's give you your due. Thank you for all of your knowledge to help steer these conversations. I do feel like some of my brain cells died while that theory was being read.
Okay, so I knew that was going to happen, so I have some structured points to discuss.
Okay.
On the validity of this theory.
Lay them on us.
The first one is, from being his name changed from Skywalker to Vader, is there actually a need for a legal process to change the name?
No.
Yep.
Not in the Star Wars universe.
I mean, okay.
Especially if you're on the dark side of the Force. I mean, I know there's a Jedi temple, and that's, if you were doing that on the other side of the Force, you might have to do some kind of paperwork with the Jedi temple, but I don't know about the dark side.
I don't think there's any sort of like registration system for the government in Star Wars, because I mean, it's a whole galaxy of different planets with all kinds of different races and everything. It would be a bureaucratical nightmare to try and keep track of everyone. So I don't think that they even mess with it personally.
Especially when you're working with technology from 1976.
Yeah.
So would it take weeks? Like, Laura, how long did it take for you to change your name?
That was so long ago.
We'll just say 2 days.
I mean, I remember going to the Social Security office. I just remember going to the Social Security office. It may have been like a week or 2 just to get my forms, like my official paperwork of, yay, it's done.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe.
It wasn't hard, though.
Okay. Well, maybe the kid never got the memo, even if, like, hey, everybody, let's call him Vader.
Maybe it was all the Force's fault. The Force should have told him.
In the movie, Like, Palpatine dubs him Darth Vader, and then he immediately goes back to the Jedi Temple and kills everybody. So, like, that's within like 30 minutes of each other. So there's no way that anybody in the temple really would have known.
Unless the Force told him.
Exactly.
I know. I wonder if it was the midi-chlorians messed it all up.
Yes.
We're talking prequels.
Yes.
We've got to involve that.
Do you think there's anything to this idea that Skywalkers kill younglings only because their name's Skywalker?
Well, it leaves a big gaping question for the end of whatever that horrible last movie was, because Rey is claiming the last name Skywalker.
Yeah. So she's basically just dubbing herself a child killer, if that's the case.
Well, like, if you think of it this way, though, like, if Luke is, let's just say he did kill all of those younglings training at his academy or whatever, that would be a good motivation for go be a hermit. You know, he feels shame. What have I done? And
true. Why didn't he kill Rey?
Exactly.
Rey?
Or was she technically too old?
Yeah, she wasn't a youngling.
Oh, she was too old by that point?
Yeah.
You're saying? Oh, okay.
She was a grown-up.
I don't know. I saw those movies once in the theater, and that was it. So I don't remember much.
Okay. Well, that's about all I got.
Okay.
Anybody have any genius accompanying thoughts?
I doubt it with this one.
All right, I'm curious. I'm going to go straight to Michael. Michael, how do you rate this theory?
I'm going to land this at preposterous.
We got our first preposterous. Yay.
I just feel dumber listening to this guy talk.
If we're going to talk about Leia orgasma.
Yeah.
I agree with you, Michael. I'm there with you. This is absolutely preposterous.
Yes, I agree. It is very preposterous. There's nothing to this. There's not enough evidence, history to support the theory that Skywalkers are predispositioned to kill younglings.
But it was a fun time.
It was
fun. It was a ride.
It was a fun
sure.
Yeah.
All right, next.
I think it's time for us to cut the whole Star Wars theory talk short. Maybe let's move on to some just regular fan theories.
Sounds good.
Cool. Spencer, do you have another one for us?
Yes. My next theory comes from The Office, for the show The Office, found on Reddit by user Athena Nike Forest.
It's a cool name.
Yep. And the title of this theory is Why Michael Hates Toby. So Athena says, from the very beginning of the show, Toby seems like a decent, quiet, friendly guy. He's a little sad, and his crush on Pam sometimes gets weird, but overall, he's one of the nicer people at Dunder Mifflin. Yet, Michael hates him. Sure, he says it's because Toby's from HR, but if we look at all the stuff Michael gets away with, it's clear that Toby isn't ever coming down on him as hard as he could. As the corporate HR rep, Toby could have gotten Michael fired literally dozens of times. My theory is that Michael's parents divorced when he was young, and he now channels his anger and feelings of abandonment towards Toby, who is a divorced father. Michael has no sense of subtlety or nuance, and so doesn't see that Toby is a far better father and human being than his own dad. Too long didn't read. Michael hates Toby because he reminds Michael of his own father. So what y'all think?
I don't remember ever hearing Michael talk about his dad. It's always about his mom and his stepdad, and that's who he didn't like.
I think it was just kind of implied.
Well, it was implied that he didn't like his stepdad, or
his real dad.
Because we definitely don't hear much about his dad, his biological dad.
Yeah.
I do feel like, Laura, I do feel like there was some mention of him not liking his stepfather.
Oh yeah, he didn't. I mean, just the way he said his name.
Mm-hmm.
I remember. Wasn't it like Dan or Steve? I mean, like he just says it with such disdain.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, yes, he didn't like his stepdad. The thing is, Toby isn't a stepdad. He is the father.
Yeah.
And like, so
Jeff.
that's what I'm trying to say of Jeff. That's what I'm trying to say is that Toby would be the divorced father, and that would be the person that Michael didn't have the connection with. And so like, if anything, I would think he would feel like an abandonment and then like want to connect. Whereas this is saying he hates him because it reminds him of his own father. I don't know. It's a little confusing.
I mean, he's saying that, okay, my dad left me. He abandoned me. And instead of feeling this need to connect with somebody, which, I mean, he does has this obsession with finding a lover, or he wants friends to like him.
And being a father. He wants to be a father.
Yeah. But as far as like finding a father figure, I don't know, maybe he just attributes a lot of his weirdness to the fact that his dad left him, and so he has these bad feelings.
I get what you're saying. I'm saying we never hear that mentioned in that in the show. All we hear is hate for his mom and stepdad Jeff. Never anything about his dad.
So let's talk about some things though. Do you just your overall impression of Toby? Do you agree with that first sentence that says he's a decent, quiet, friendly guy, other than the weirdness of like his crush on Pam? Do you think he's, a relatively stand-up guy?
Yes, he tries to teach everybody in the office self-defense at one point. He's also the person, he's very knowledgeable about like the different kinds of testing you need to do in a building like that, as far as like testing for asbestos and everything in the walls and in the air. Like, he really knows this stuff. And so I think he's a smart guy. I could say I think that Michael just doesn't like Toby because everybody else in the office, even if they're trying to not be out there and be bombastic like Michael and Dwight, they all have a definite personality. And Toby doesn't. And I think that's what Michael doesn't like about Toby, personally, in my own canon.
Interesting.
Yeah, I would say he's probably a nice guy. He's just so incredibly socially awkward. Like, his social skills are just so terrible that that's probably why his wife left him. And that's why he has such a hard time, like, making friends with people. And he's trying, like, give him credit, he's trying with all the things that you said that he did, but he just doesn't know how to do it the right way. And I think that he just makes Michael so uncomfortable that there's just this subliminal hatred that like bubbles up in Michael and sees him as just insufferable. And I can kind of see it, like I feel for the guy. I feel bad. And he's honestly, Toby's probably a glutton for punishment as well. I see him as that kind of guy. Like he doesn't really enjoy, but he is the first to like put himself down, And so that's why he doesn't push on a lot of these things. And that's probably why he doesn't get rid of Michael like he could, because he's like, you know what? I probably deserve it. He just seems like that kind of guy to me.
I was just gonna say, like, the reason we're given is essentially like, okay, Toby's from HR, so he has all these rules and makes Michael's follow these rules. But if you really think about it, like, I've never hated anybody from HR, and I've never known anybody that's had real issues with someone from HR. And we also, like you said, Michael, he like lets Michael get away with a lot. Like, I think that Michael Scott's hate for Toby is way deeper than him just being a guy who ruins his fun.
Yeah.
Like, there's something else there.
I wonder, because the post, Athena says something about, he says it's because Toby is from HR. And we know that Michael has worked at Dunder Mifflin for a very long time. And I doubt with the ages of, or like what I imagine and see Michael and Toby's ages as being, Toby hasn't been Michael's HR person the whole time. Could there have been a horrible, horrible person in HR before Michael or before Toby when Michael was a salesman with Todd Packer, out there on the floor, that, I don't know, maybe this person ruined the fun that Michael and Todd Packer tried to have together. And that's what put the bad taste in Michael's mouth, so that when Toby came in, he had no chance. It was just automatically, oh, you work at HR, you suck.
Or he tells a joke and he says, get out.
If we follow with the one random fan theory that I've heard before, that Toby was actually the Scranton Strangler, it could mean that Michael's actually a genius who knows how to read people, and he knows that there's something off about Toby. He just does not like him, but he can't put his finger on it.
He has a good
so he just
intuition and gut.
Yeah.
I have something that kind of goes against this, but supports what you're saying, Laura, is that when Holly shows up, he just assumes she's going to be a horrible person because she's from HR.
Right. No, I definitely am not necessarily in the camp of him being the Scranton Strangler, because I'm pretty sure it was disproved at one point. But I just know that that's something that was thrown out there by somebody. And I think it's kind of funny.
Why are you the way you are?
I hate everything about you.
So what is it about him that if he was in a room with Hitler and Toby and was it Saddam?
Yeah.
Yes.
He'd shoot Toby twice?
Yep.
I don't know. It's a good question, and I mean, this is an interesting. Maybe Toby looked or sounded or acted like his dad. I don't know, and then like he just has this built in. Like he just attaches the hate to Toby, which also attaches it to the HR role, and so that kind of bleeds over when Holly comes in. I don't know.
Yeah,
maybe. Or
it could just be a joke that was written by the writers of the show that was hilarious, and so they kept writing it in.
Yeah, that is true. Oh, but we do have a highlighted comment that's going to maybe add to this.
Okay.
This is from Pope Boho the 8th. I'll take the thought
I think that's Pope Boho the 13th.
Oh, that is a 10. Okay.
Yeah.
Pope Boho the 13th. I'll take the thought further and say Michael hates Toby even more because he's attempting to be a good father. If Michael lives with the thought, once you get divorced, you can no longer be a part of your kid's life, then when Toby clearly still loves and spends time with his daughter, Michael realizes that his father actually abandoned him. This could also drive the thought that he was the reason his father left, and as everyone knows, Michael has a need to be liked, especially by his superiors. This could be seen as a reminder of a big failure of not being able to get his father to like him. And then someone responds to that, Josh Kim 7, good point. There's an episode in season 5 or 6, I think, of Toby playing Connect 4 and card games with Michael in order to get him to talk to him about his feelings and anger. And it works. Michael is clearly, inside, still a kid who desperately seeks the approval of someone. A father would have helped. Aww. So there's some deep stuff there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. Do you have anything else to bring up?
No, I think that's sufficient.
Yeah,
all right,
I'm
Laura,
to rate it.
What are you thinking?
I'm going to go unlikely on this. I can't go preposterous. It didn't make my brain leak out my ears like the Star Wars post we listened to before. But I don't agree with it about it being at all connected to Michael's father. Yes, I understand Michael hates Toby. And yes, he harbors a lot of issues regarding his parents' divorce and his subsequent childhood affected by that. However, I don't see a correlation to Toby. I think that's a different thing on its own.
Okay. That's a good summary. What about you, Michael?
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with Laura on this one. I was firmly set at unlikely, but that last little bit of evidence that you read from that comment made me lean a little bit more towards plausible, but not enough to pull away from unlikely. I still think it's just probably not likely that this is true, you know. I'm going to just stay there.
I'm going to say that it's plausible. I think that obviously it could just be a joke that the writers wrote in there. But if we're going to give it an in-show reason for it, there could very likely be several things working together to make maybe there's something that Toby did that made him jealous. Like, he told a funny joke, But I think it's plausible that there's something like this that has something to do with it. So that was why Toby hates Michael. I mean, we all know why Toby hates Michael. Why Michael hates Toby. All right, who's up next?
I can go.
Okay.
This next one is from Reddit user ZPanda66. And their theory is that Red Notice is an unofficial spinoff for the Fast and Furious character Luke Hobbs. This one's a little bit long, so just bear with me. So the evidence. The film was produced by The Rock's $7 production company for Netflix, the same company that also produced Hobbs and Shaw for Universal. After The Rock realized he wouldn't be getting a Hobbs and Shaw sequel anytime soon due to his dispute with Vin Diesel, he decides to go off and make his own action film inspired by his Fast and Furious character with Netflix. Note, this is all speculation on my part. So in Red Notice, The Rock plays an FBI agent named John Hartley, who is tasked to hunt down Ryan Reynolds' character, Nolan Booth, after he steals one of Cleopatra's 3 bejeweled eggs. Now, you might say, but in Fast 5, it's established that Hobbs is an agent for the DSS, or a Diplomatic Security Service. That is true, but it could be that Red Notice is set before the events of Fast 5 and even Hobbs and Shaw. In this theory, Hobbs graduates to the DSS after he was an FBI agent. The end of Red Notice also explains why Ryan Reynolds' character would be working for the CIA in Hobbs and Shaw under a pseudonym Locke. Because after the events of Red Notice, and presumably the events of its upcoming sequels, he's hired by the CIA as an asset, presumably through his connection of John Hartley, aka Hobbs. Hobbs sees that he has potential as a CIA asset. Both John Hartley and Nolan Booth are pseudonyms, so we've got the evidence that The Rock and Reynolds could, in theory, be playing their respective characters from Hobbs and Shaw just under different names. But what about Gal Gadot's Red Notice character, Sarah Black / the Bishop? Sorry for spoilers. It's revealed at the end of Red Notice that she was working with Nolan Booth the whole time. I would think that it's likely after the events of Fast and Furious from 2009, the 4th Fast and Furious movie for those who are keeping track, Giselle likely goes undercover briefly under a pseudonym and gives herself the name Sarah Black, aka the Bishop. If you consider Red Notice takes place before Fast and Furious 2009 and Fast 5, then it does at least fit in with Giselle's timeline. We'll need to see what happens in the Red Notice sequels to see if anything contradicts this theory further, but curious to know what you all think. So, it's a lot to unpack. Spencer, do you want to go first before I start?
I do. I've seen the first Fast and Furious, and I have not seen Red Notice. So, I don't know what I can say. But it sounds creative.
Sorry for spoilers. I would recommend watching Red Notice. It's really good.
Sarah Black / the Bishop / Wonder Woman.
Yes. Okay, so I'll go ahead and go into kind of my thing since this was the theory that I chose. I like this idea because I like both of those movies. I know everybody has their own thoughts about the Fast and Furious franchise. I love them, not because they're necessarily like the best. It's just a fun movie series for me. And so I've stuck with them through the whole thing. But yeah, like the characters that both The Rock and Ryan Reynolds play in Hobbs and Shaw are very similar to the ones that they play in Red Notice, with a few little exceptions here and there, but it could just be the change of their roles in each one. And it's plausible for me that Gal Gadot's character, Giselle, in the Fast and Furious franchise could become her character in Red Notice, because they have a very similar skill set as well. Both thieves, and she's very handy with weaponry and capable of defending herself. What were you going to say, Spencer?
So she's in Fast and Furious movies?
Mm-hmm. Yep. She comes in, I believe, in the 4th one, and she sticks around, I think, for the next 2, so I think through 6.
Is Ryan Reynolds in a Fast and Furious movie?
He's in the Hobbs and Shaw spinoff of the Fast and Furious movies.
Okay.
Yeah. He's only in there briefly, but he's in there. And it was actually kind of fun when he showed up because nobody knew he was going to be in that movie. And he just randomly shows up in one scene and just kind of blew everybody's minds, or at least mine, and when I was in the theater. Yeah. So, yeah, I think the connections are there. I mean, the skill sets are very similar. I don't think anybody really cares about the continuity and actual facts of these two movies. So I don't think it's a big deal for us to make this connection here, but I like it. I think it's fun. Laura, what do you think?
So I've not seen any of these movies either. However, I know little bits about them. I will say I think it would be plausible and it would work just fine for them to be prequel, or like that they would fit in the middle of Fast and Furious, because those 3 lead actors have like made some kind of pact with the devil that they look exactly the same as they did maybe 10 or 15 years ago.
Yep.
And they all still look absolutely gorgeous, all 3 of them.
Yep.
So it totally works that they can totally step back in time and everything. Yeah, sure. That's exactly what happened. Yes, we believe it. It fits.
Yep. Yeah. I don't know exactly how the timeline would match up with the 2 franchises or whatever, but I'm sure there's a way that it could be connected. So yeah, I don't really think there's much more to this than what we've already talked about and what was explained. So unless you guys have anything to add, I'm ready to rate.
I guess the argument would be that this is just another action thriller and they're all the same. So that's why they might seem similar.
Yeah.
Here's a question for you.
Yeah.
Could you also cross in, what was it, when Ryan Reynolds plays Samuel L. Jackson's bodyguard?
Oh, the Hitman's bodyguard?
Oh.
Yes, and then like Salma Hayek also comes in there.
Yeah.
Can that be folded in too?
Oh, absolutely. I think all of Ryan Reynolds' characters and all of his movies are somehow connected in the same universe. You know?
And Green Lantern?
Yeah. Unfortunately.
Oh, Lord. And Free
Van
Guy.
Wilder?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Cool.
gosh.
You guys ready to rate?
Sure.
All right, Spencer, you kick us off.
Well, let me ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
Was the dispute with Vin Diesel, some people were saying that was just a stunt, like for publicity. What do you think?
Oh, you mean between The Rock and
Yeah.
Vin Diesel?
My personal thoughts, I mean, I could see it as both sides of the argument.
Mm-hmm.
When it first started happening, I honestly thought it was a publicity stunt, and just to like drum up more conversations about the movies, which I don't know why they would need to, because people are going to watch these movies regardless. You know, if you've watched all the movies up to this point, you're going to watch whatever they put out. You know, it's just kind of a given. But yeah, I could see it as either a big publicity stunt, and The Rock's going to show up, and he's been actually secretly filming with them this whole time in the 10th one. I think it's Fast X or something like that now. Yeah, go ahead.
I would say that that determines what my rating is. Like, if this is legit and it kills his chances of getting one of these sequels, then this is absolutely, genius that this is an unofficial sequel or spinoff, whatever you want to call it. But if that wasn't a legit dispute and it's just publicity stuff, and he does come later, maybe not so certain after all, and that would be more plausible.
Yeah, if you asked me to make a decision on which way I think it is just right now, I would lean a little more towards it may actually be a real dispute, just with the personalities of Vin Diesel and The Rock. They have very strong personalities. They're both very opinionated. I could see them having issues.
Yeah,
so we'll lean towards that.
The Rock is like a get it done kind of guy, and he's gonna make something happen even if he's told he can't. So I totally give him the credit of like saying, I want this even though I can't make it happen in a legitimate way. I'll just do it under the radar the way that I want to do it. So I guess so. Genius. Say genius.
Awesome. Laura?
I am surprised at that genius level. I'll say it's plausible. It just sounds like somebody really, when you think of that idea of people connecting dots with registering, somebody is really stretching that string really hard to make it fit, in my opinion. So, plausible.
Cool. I'm definitely plausible on this. Like, I love the idea of it. I think it's great just because I like both of these, like I said. But in the end, does it really matter?
Just any of it?
Yeah.
I'll let you guys know what he says after I have my meeting with The Rock on Wednesday.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Appreciate it. Cool. Well, I guess we're ready to move on to the next theory.
Yeah.
What do you say, guys?
Yep.
I'm ready.
Okay. Well, this is the one that you've all been waiting for since our last episode. Was Arnold's room originally used by his grandparents to grow pot? Oh, man. I keep getting the crazy usernames.
What is this? Sound it out.
Username. Okay.
I can't wait to hear this.
I'm crying. Okay. Why do I get these usernames? Okay. Fan art alt man fart salt.
That was good. That's how I read it.
Okay.
A little bit closer together, but
fan art alt man fart salt.
Oh, goodness.
Okay, I might need a minute. Okay. We're good. Okay. All right. While the boarding house was originally
this is
won
from
by
Hey Arnold, right?
Oh yeah, this is from the Nickelodeon cartoon Hey Arnold from the 90s. That this is what I grew up watching. Spencer, did you ever watch Hey Arnold?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh, you did? Okay, cool. Michael?
I honestly didn't. I was at the right age when it came out, but I just never really got into that show. I had other shows I liked better.
Okay, gotcha. All right, so while the boarding house was originally won by Arnold's grandfather in a card game, upkeep over the years would have been somewhat expensive, especially given the running joke of it being apparently filled with strange animals literally every time the front door is opened. That is a very fun detail. So they've got some bullet points here written out in their theory. Arnold's family is poor, yet there are a few other strange things about the house. Grandpa has a private bathroom, which is pretty nice, which I'll save this till the end. I'll save my little comment till the end. Okay. One of the floors has been converted entirely into a penthouse suite. Arnold's room has a massive skylight installed, which according to high-angle shots seems to be very rare for the area. Arnold's room is extremely modernized, far above the family's supposed standard of living. This theory is a simple one. Before Arnold was born, his room was at some point converted to grow weed, hence the skylight. The money was used on upkeep / to make the additions touched on above, with a bit left over to put into savings. While it's fair to note that his grandparents never mentioned any of this to him, his grandfather especially is shown to frequently be pretty untrustworthy and not above some shady doings to turn a buck. The attic grow room was then converted to a bedroom, with the modern additions made by using the savings stashed away during the time selling weed. For their flaws, Arnold's grands are shown to love him very much and treat him when they're able. The show starts shortly after this money has dried out, hence the inconsistencies between their poverty and some details regarding their standard of living. Okay, real quick, I will say, just to throw in there about Arnold's grandpa having a private bathroom. This is notable. They have a boarding house in New York. I can't remember if they live in the Bronx or Queens, but I lived in a boarding house for a little bit. When I was in college, I would spend my summers in Canyon, Texas. That's near Amarillo. That's near the city of Amarillo. And I did outdoor musical theater there as just a summer job. So traveling up to Canyon for the summer, I would live in a boarding house. And you did not have ensuite bathrooms. There were just all these bedrooms up on the second floor that I lived on. And there was one bathroom that we all had to share. So, typical boarding house, that's what would be going on in this house, which we see for Arnold. Arnold has to share the bathroom, but Grandpa has his own private bathroom. So it's pretty sweet, is what they're saying.
But,
and one of the floors has been converted to a penthouse suite, which is really nice and modern. Anyway, what were you saying, Spencer?
I was going to say, if you own the building and it had a private bathroom, wouldn't you have the private bathroom?
Oh, most definitely. The lady that owned the house lived there,
Mm-hmm.
and yes, she had
She
her
had a
own
private
private bathroom. Yeah, but I mean, this is in a small town in the Panhandle of Texas. I mean, these tenement houses, that wouldn't be as common. It would be a lot like a dorm building. I mean,
Okay.
one bathroom on the hall, like that would be pretty common. So
Got it.
yeah, I do remember that skylight. I always noticed that skylight in Arnold's room.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there are some pots of plants growing in the skylight there above his bed. But yeah, as soon as I saw I mean, that wasn't anything I ever thought about. I watched Hey Arnold when I was very young, before I ever knew anything about Mary Jane and stuff like that. I didn't know about those things when I was watching Hey Arnold. So it wasn't anything in my later life that I connected those dots until I saw this theory. And I went, oh, my childhood. What have you done, fan art, alt man fart salt? You've ruined it. Anyway, so I'll open the floor to any kind of comments anyone has.
So one of the points and observations is that Arnold's room is extremely modernized, far above the family's supposed standard of living. And it seemed to me, and maybe Laura, you can tell me, did it seem like more high tech than at the time? Like more so than like me looking at it like, that is a really cool room. I'd love to have something like that. How would you even go about getting such a tech, incorporated room,
Yeah, his room was awesome.
all
Arnold's
kinds of
room
like
was really
motorized things moving around?
No, not necessarily that. Of just, yeah, it's hard to remember. And I tried watching some episodes just like on YouTube, but before we recorded, just so that I could try to remember. But I do remember like he had a nice computer, and I can't remember if he had his own phone line in there or not, but I feel like he did. But I just remember, yes, his room was super nice and cool, and then like other places around them weren't that great looking, and like wallpaper peeling and stuff like that, and water stains on the ceiling, and
yeah, but like,
that's
what this the thing. What I'm thinking of, he's got that futon or couch that like flips up.
It's like a Murphy bed.
Yeah, and it's like motorized. I don't know. It just seemed like I'm looking at pictures of it right now. And then one other thing. Oh, the grandfather is shown to be frequently and pretty untrustworthy. Not only that, but the grandmother is an absolute certified nut.
Oh,
which would be a side effect of smoking pot a long time. Maybe. I wouldn't know.
I could definitely see them having been hippies.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I can definitely see that. And she is just still gone into that time period of her life. She's still there being a hippie, whereas Grandpa has come back down to earth. And I don't see him as being shady so much as he's in creative. Maybe he's creative.
Okay.
Let's say that, of how he makes things happen. I don't want to think of Grandpa as being like a bad guy.
No.
I mean, he really does. They do love Arnold so much in that show. If you look up things about that show, I mean, there's so many heartfelt things about it, lessons that it was trying to teach our generation of like of acceptance, of being accepting of all different kinds of socioeconomic status, any kind of religion, race, creed, of being accepting of all of that, single parent backgrounds, nationalities, family structures, of how it's still a family and there's still love there. So we should be just as accepting. Like it is a beautiful, great show with great story to it. So I mean, who knows? Maybe this was a secret little thing because maybe the writers were smoking pot. I don't know.
I mean, I think the main point that supports it is just how different that room is from the rest of the boarding house.
Yeah, I do agree with that, and that's what, if I'm going to use that to segue into my rating.
Okay,
is that okay with y'all? Were there any other points?
Michael, did you have anything to add?
I don't really have any skin in this game for this one because, like I said, I never really watched it. I think I maybe saw 2 episodes, and there just wasn't enough action in it for me at that age. Like, I wanted something with more action. Like, I was watching Transformers, the animated series, at that time, so I didn't really get into it. But the only thing I was going to say is, like, if we go off of the hippie theory that they were hippies didn't just smoke pot. They did a lot harder stuff.
No,
So that could explain possibly why the grandparents were as weird as they were. I don't know. That's just all I was going to say.
It's a good point. That's a very good point. They could have done some much harder stuff. Maybe some LSD.
Yeah.
Magic mushrooms.
Yep.
Who knows? Yeah. So I was going to propel myself off of that into my rating of this. And I think it's plausible. I'm not going to go genius level, but definitely just the fact that, you know, the way that cartoons are animated, especially this special block of these Nickelodeon cartoons, there would be a shot of the skyline and you could see Arnold's skylight, and there were nothing else around it. That was the only skylight. And so, yes, I agree. There was something grown in there. It was definitely a greenhouse kind of room at one point in its inception. So, yeah, I think it's plausible.
Yeah, I think it's plausible as well, just for the same reasons that you said. It's got to been built that way for some reason, for a specific purpose. You know, if it was just a nice thing to have, you would think that buildings around in the area you would see some here or there, like, oh, I think that's nice. I'm gonna add that to my building. Or this architect over here designed these 2 buildings to look similar, and there's none of that. So this was built for a specific purpose, and like you said, it's very similar looking to a greenhouse, and they would need some way to get the money to make it look nice. And what makes money? Pot.
Yeah.
As we all know.
Yeah. So for me, with no knowledge really of the show, I'm basing this just off of the evidence that was provided by the theory and by you guys. I'm going to go with plausible as well. Just kind of ride the coattails there. I mean, it sounds plausible to me. I mean, it sounds like it's something that could possibly happen. And during the 80s and 90s, that was a time where a lot of animators and cartoons and stuff had hidden things in their shows and movies that were more adult in nature, that it would have gone right over the kids' heads. So, I mean, it's plausible that these guys were like, hey, let's make the grandparents potheads, and these kids won't get it, but it'll be a funny inside joke for us. So, yeah, plausible is my rating.
Cool.
Great.
Laura, I have a surprise for you.
For me?
Yes, I included a bonus fun Star Wars theory.
Ooh.
Into our
Awesome.
show notes.
Let's hear it.
That I want you to read.
Me?
Yes, that's why it's
good.
for you.
Okay. All right. So I see here, bonus fun Star Wars theory. Star Wars proves George Lucas is afraid of worms. This comes from user All the Grievous. All right. Thank you. That was much easier to read. In movies 3 through 6, there are quite a few giant worm monsters. In A New Hope, we have the Dianoga. Is that right?
Sounds right.
Yeah.
I don't remember it being pronounced. Dianoga, the trash compactor monster. In Empire, we have the Exogarth that actually had an ecosystem, including the Millennium Falcon in its digestive tract. And in Return of the Jedi, not only is there the Sarlacc, Jabba is a giant slug, which is a grosser worm. Lucas is scared of worms and probably snakes. And that's the theory from All the Grievous.
My favorite comment from Stone Cold X is, nah, it's just Star Wars proves George Lucas read Dune.
I agree.
Yep.
And then Tim Burton saw those and made Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have to discuss it. I just thought it was a funny one to put in.
That's a fun theory.
Yes, I love it.
All right, well, Laura.
Spencer.
Michael.
guys.
It's time to bring this episode to a close, but before we do, I want to leave you with a fascinating movie detail from, what is this guy's? Sadmurai. So samurai, but Sadmurai.
Thank you.
Yes, from the movie Dazed and Confused. So this is truly fascinating. Dazed and Confused is a movie that could never be made in this day and age. This is because it has already been made, and that would be considered plagiarism. So there you go.
Oh, wow. Thanks for that, Sadmurai.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, on that note, we hope that you can follow us on social media. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Our handle is FanTheoryQs.
And hey, share us with your family and friends.
Yeah, they'll like that.
Yeah.
Well, this has been Fan Theory Queries. I'm Laura.
I'm Michael.
And I'm Spencer. Join us next time for another batch of genius, plausible, unlikely, and preposterous fan theories.